Reagan, and welcome back to another reading vlog. This reading vlog I'm really looking forward to because we are officially in the lead up to the holiday season. Not only is this one of my favorite weeks of the year because I'm thinking about the end of the year, my favorite books, all of those types of things, but I'm also really looking forward to my TBR because I'm going to be revisiting a romantasy series that's super popular and that I liked but didn't love the first book in, and I'm giving it a second chance and hoping that I'm gonna like the second book even more, and I think it'll just be a fun reading vlog to experience. We are officially about a week out from Christmas, which is a wild feeling. I don't really know where this week went. I actually love the end of the year, not only for the holidays, but as a creator, I love making like my favorite books of the year videos and all of those types of things. So I'm kind of in the thick of that at the moment. But for this vlog, I really wanted to feature not only a popular title, but a title I'm kind of giving a second chance to and can act as a bit of a palate cleanser. And the book I'm talking about is Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is a super popular romantasy leaning fantasy series. I read the first one this year and I liked it. I didn't love it. I actually really enjoyed the fantasy elements, but just wasn't totally sold on the romance. But I've heard the sequel is even better than the first one. I'm hoping things get a little more intense, a little more angsty, and I'm hoping just in general that this is super entertaining. This is a series I wanna love so much, so I feel like giving it a second chance is very, very warranted. And I also feel like this is the perfect thing for me to pick up right now because I've been reading some very intense books recently. I'm wrapping up Fool's Quest by Robin Hobb, which has been very, very difficult to read. Like fantastic, but very, very difficult. So I wanted something that was maybe a bit more fun. So regardless, I'm excited to document and read this over the course of this week, and hopefully my mind and heart will be changed about this series. But yes, I'm super excited about this vlog. This week is also a funky one when it comes to work obligations and all of that. I think we're all just kind of sticking our heads in the sand where and how we can. But my first order of business actually before I read, get stuff done, is take a shower because I have let myself rot a little bit too long. So the next time you see me, I'll be making lunch and I will be laundered. So welcome to the vlog. So as I promised, I am laundered and I even got dressed for the day, and now it is time for lunch. I made a huge batch of homemade tomato soup yesterday, which is kind of like my current food hyperfixation, and it's great because it heats up so perfectly. So I'm going to heat this up, and then I think I'm gonna make like a little cheese toasty to dip in it as well. So I have cheese and a loaf of bread, quick and easy, and should be amazing. Lunch is served. This is so silly, but Clay got a cheetah print Snuggie in his work Secret Santa, and for some reason it being Matilda's new favorite blanket to lay on is so funny. Go off, queen, you're a cheetah girl. So I'm actually about to go start reading. First, I wanted to make a seasonal beverage. I've gotten really into making my own seasonal beverages at home. Today we're making a mocha, which I've made a mocha in the past, but I've upgraded my mocha game because now I make homemade hot chocolate, and I can assure you homemade hot chocolate is worth the extra effort. Marshmallows, chocolate chips, sugar, milk, and whipped cream, and then I'll brew espresso at my coffee maker and I'll just pour that in, but we need a pot. This is all I got. Dump some milk. Oh, dump some milk in this cup. A dash of vanilla. Scoop of sugar. Oh, that was kind of a lot of sugar. If I'm being, well, too late now. So obviously seasonal drinks make me think of the holidays, and I was checking the weather. Guys, in Austin, it's going to be 76 degrees on Christmas Day. And I read this article the other day, and I'm sure you guys have seen too, but 2023 obviously has been the hottest year ever. Like around the world, the hottest year ever in a 76 degree Christmas Day. Though while I try to escape all of my dark thoughts with a delicious homemade mocha, it really makes you think, doesn't it? Obviously climate change is very, very real, but humans are in the driver's seat, and it's really up to us to try to, I don't know, make changes where we can and really push policy. And this increased temperature goes hand in hand with more severe climate related weather patterns too: drought, wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, ice storms in Austin, Texas. We had a little bit of progress domestically with policies like the Inflation Reduction Act being passed, but I guess cheers to 2024 and trying to do something about climate change. But you know, cheers. Once my milk is hot, I add my chocolate chips. I'm using semi-sweet because that is what I had in the house. And you just plop them in the pan because the hot chocolate making must go on even with an existential dread. And then you just mix it into the milk. You keep stirring, stirring, stirring until the chocolate is melted and incorporated. And then I'm gonna dump this over espresso for a little caffeine kick, midday caffeine kick while I pick up my book. And look at that, folks. We got hot chocolate. It's time to enjoy my hot chocolate mocha creation. Let's get the good angle. Look at this. Holiday decor, holiday mug, seasonal caffeinated beverage, thriving. Not to be dramatic, but I'm pretty sure this is one of the greatest things I've ever consumed in my entire life. Homemade hot chocolate as a base is worth it every time. I have had hot chocolate 5 days in a row at this point. I have been simmering milk with sugar and vanilla and chocolate. You saw, I'm basically out of hot chocolate chips. Anyway, I'm gonna start my book now. Twisted Crown. Hi friends, my beverage has been consumed and I'm happy to report I have read the first 50 pages of Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig, and I owe y'all a reading update and a little bit of a synopsis of what this book and series is about. Two Twisted Crowns is actually the sequel to One Dark Window and the concluding novel to this duology. I read the first book earlier this year and liked it but did not love it. I liked a lot of the fantasy elements of it, from the magic system to the setting and even the writing style. What I didn't necessarily love in the first one was the romance chemistry. I found the characters compelling, but I wasn't fully drawn into their world and in particular their romance as much as I wanted to. This series is really lauded for its combination of well-written fantasy and the romance component, so it was by no means a bad book. The first book was very good and it's very popular for a reason, but it just didn't fully land for me. But given the reviews of the second book, I thought I would continue on and finish up the duology just because I've heard the second book is even better than the first book. Chat about what this series is about. So this book is set in a dark and very like vibey kingdom. It's basically a kingdom that's surrounded by this mysterious, dense and dangerous fog. And every single year this fog encroaches more and more on the land, making things like growing crops, traveling, not only more difficult, but very, very dangerous. In this world, there's also a magic system centering around like a deck of cards. There is a limited amount of these cards, so magic is like contained to a finite amount of people, and if you possess one of these cards, you're able to tap it and harness the power within the card itself. There is always consequences to using magic in this world, and different cards do different things. For example, there's a maiden card, which makes the user really, really beautiful, but also has the consequence of making you more cold-hearted. You have the scythe card, which gives you the ability to control people's minds, but it's incredibly painful to use. You have the mirror card, which allows you to travel invisible. You have the chalice card, which allows you to force truth from people around you, so great for interrogation. There's a prophecy that says if you can get all of the cards, the magical cards, into one singular deck, you're able to push away the evil fog that's like impacting this kingdom. And there is a very power-hungry king at the center of this kingdom, and he basically has been like hoarding all of the cards and looking for the final set of cards he needs to complete the deck, which have been missing for like generations, and there's sort of like a mystery surrounding them. But he himself his motivations for achieving and getting these cards is like unclear to us as a reader. In book one, we're introduced to our main character, Elsbeth, and she is part of kind of like an aristocratic family, and her uncle is like really obsessed with gathering cards for himself and like putting himself in the most powerful position possible. Elsbeth, as a child, had a complicated situation wherein which she like desperately needed help, resulting in a situation where she's had sort of a monster living in her brain, a magical individual where she doesn't really fully understand like the origin of why he's there in her brain, but they have been kind of like cohabitating together for like many, many years. At the beginning of this book, Elsbeth is like traveling through the forest, which again is really dangerous, and she's set upon by highwaymen, but they're not highwaymen. They're actually people involved in rebellion and revolution within the kingdom, and they're all like powerful political figures within the kingdom, from a prince's son to the prince's cousin and head of the guard. So they kind of become entrenched. In book one, we also follow Elsbeth and a romance that begins to spark between her and a figure in that book, but there is a mystery, there's drama, and there's darkness, and the end of book one was actually rather explosive. As I said, the strengths of book one and what I did enjoy was the fantasy setting. I thought was well written, the magic system was cool, and the drama and the intrigue of the book did keep me interested. I wanted more angst and back and forth from a romantic point of view between our characters, but obviously I liked it enough to keep going, which is where we are now in book two. So I will say book two starts like immediately right off the bat where we are from book one. Which is great from like an action plot pacing point of view. We're also reading from a variety of characters, which I'm liking. We got perspectives in the first book, but I feel like this book is going to be a kind of an ensemble reading experience. Like Elsbeth was very much our main character in book one, but in this one, she's definitely important, especially based off of the consequences of book one. But we're reading and experiencing the story now through multiple points of views, which I think is going to benefit this narrative because it's going to allow us to have different character entanglements and read from their perspectives to make us care more, at least make me care more. So action off the bat, good. The writing style is very vibey, and I feel like really capturing this ominous, dark setting of this book, which I'm liking, and I'm just liking the new perspectives we're reading from. Predominantly, we're reading from one of the prince's point of views, who we know from the first book. What I'm really liking is that we're getting a lot more of Ione, who again is another character we were introduced in book one, who's Elsbeth's cousin, who also possesses the maiden card. And she is a character I've always been really interested by, not only to kind of understand how the maiden card works, but she's definitely representative of a character who has to navigate the political reality of this landscape in a very delicate way, using her charm and beauty, and also she as a character has been used by her family to gain more power, and she's also been attached to very abusive characters in the past. So she as a character is just like very compelling, and she's clearly capable, but she's also very austere and doesn't give much information away. So I'm excited to learn more about her and see her navigate more closely within this story, because I just think she's a very compelling character. So yeah, so far the first 50 pages have been interesting to me. And again, I'm going in with an open and positive mindset just because I wasn't absolutely blown away by One Dark Window by a lot of people. And again, I gave One Dark Window like a 3-star. It wasn't a bad rating. I just want it to be a 5-star rating. But I'm hopeful that I'm going to like the sequel and final book in this duology more, and we'll just see where we land. That is kind of an overview of what this series is about, my feelings on the first one, and some very, very, very initial feelings on the second one. The writing style is good. It has like a murkiness to it, which I'm appreciating. 100 pages have officially been read, but now it's time for my favorite activity. And that's watch 90 Day Fiancé and play some Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Back on my Tears of the Kingdom play through time. I'm about to just sink so many hours into that over the holiday season. Incredible. Wondering that Taco Bell did make me feel a little bit sick. Hello, Matilda. It happens every time. I never learn. So the only recourse is to relax and read in bed. I'm gonna read more of Two Twisted Crowns. Again, I read 100 pages. I'm liking the book. Still in the early stages of the book. I like the inclusion of additional characters. I think this is gonna help, and I'm hopeful I like this romance more, but I have to encounter more of it before I can make that decision. But we shall see. Good morning, everyone. It's time for some coffee, and I'm gonna sit down and do some reading. I'm finding this book to be a rather quick read. I'll sit down and chat about it more in a bit though after I've caffeinated. Hi everyone, I'm here with a reading update and my cup of coffee. So I've made pretty excellent progress on Two Twisted Crowns. I'm almost 50% of the way through this book. There's no denying that this book reads really quickly and that it's kind of a compulsive read and it's entertaining. It's also, okay, I feel like I'm a little bit of two minds. And what I mean by that is so many aspects of this book on paper I'm really liking and objectively I think are great ideas, but there is still something with the execution that's still not entirely clicking for me. I will say I still think I like this book more than the first one, so the hope that book 2 in this world is better than book 1 I still think is holding to be true. But let's take a step back and talk about more specifics. So I would say this book is kind of split in half in terms of the plot, and this is both to its benefit and to its detriment. I think it's a smart move because it gives us more characters and more storylines to follow, making it more interesting and intriguing. And it also gives us like two different types of fantasy plot lines. The first storyline we're following is Raven, who we know from the first book, and his connection with Elsbeth and this sort of monster that lives in her brain. There is a quest sort of happening here, and the quest kind of ends with the fate of the kingdom, like on Raven's shoulders, but also the fate of Elsbeth on his shoulders. And this sort of quest, in theory, I'm really liking. It's mysterious. There are trials that the people on this quest have to go through to try to find this missing card, to complete this deck, to like save the world from this evil mist. And then the other plot line we have is in the castle, and it's more politically oriented. In it, we're reading from the perspective of one of the princes, Elm, and his relationship with Ione, and his relationship with his father as he's trying to navigate and, you know, protect his friend Raven from afar, but also protect the kingdom and growing closer to this new person in his life, Ione. So in theory, I like both of these plot lines quite a bit. The political aspect and the romance aspect with Elm, and then the quest aspect with Raven as he's venturing out into the world. And like, it's so weird because like, it's a book where like, in theory, I like everything. The writing style is good. I feel like it's very atmospheric and captures the vibe of what's happening. And the tropes that the author is including, I'm also liking. I think maybe what I'm struggling with and what could make this book like better than how I'm feeling I'm experiencing it, and by, again, this book is by no means bad, is the pacing. Like, all the concepts are really good, but because this book is split in half, we have two different storylines going on, more time I think could be spent in each storyline, and I feel like it could have benefited from drawing things out to create more intensity, more longing, more drama between characters and within situations. The romance that is included in this second one in particular, I do feel like has more chemistry than I felt like in the first book between Elsbeth, but I also feel like aspects of it still feel accelerated, and the push and pull between these two characters could be like drawn out even further in an agonizing fashion to make it better. But the setup is good, the idea is good, and the tropes the author is using is good. So do you see why I have two minds? Like, all the inputs I like, and aspects of the execution I also like, but I think I just see this book and I'm like, this could have been 5 out of 5 stars for me, I think, if like slight tweaks were made. And I think it has a lot to do with just drawing things out a bit more. I like more space and time to believe the agony that the characters are experiencing. And I think just aspects of the book feel rushed. And I'll also say I like this fantasy world, and I think the magic system is cool. That being said, the magic system is definitely like small and contained. Like the politics and sort of the end goal to fix everything is a contained experience, but I don't actually think that's too much of a negative, because I feel like if the author tried to do something larger, it just wouldn't work with the space that we're kind of giving to that element of the fantastical plot, and it allows for more time to focus on characters and romance, which, like, there's some steamy scenes, there's some interesting back and forth, and maybe I would like this book or the romance between Elm and Ione more if I was able to read from Ione's perspective. We only get that relationship through Elm's perspective, which I don't dislike, but Ione's kind of a mystery to Elm and us as the reader, which I know is on purpose, but I think if we had some more insight about who she is, what she's feeling, I maybe would not mind this accelerated romance as much, and I could see it from more angles, which would help me buy in a bit more. And also I just really like her as a character, so I would like to read from her point of view. Some of my favorite chapters are actually the Elspeth chapters because I think they're really dreamlike and interesting, and I appreciate the author's approach and how she's handling that situation. And I think it adds a level of like dark fantasy curse writing that I think is working well. Like, I like the author's writing style. I want her to write like just like a long, like her concepts are good. I just want them to be like more, make me hurt more while reading them. Maybe that says more about me, I don't know. But anyway, I've read half this book. It reads so fast, and it is entertaining. I think it's just like an example of when I read something, I'm like, this is good, but it could be great, you know? But I am enjoying this reading experience, and I am liking it more than One Dark Window. So I'm looking forward to see how the whole thing's gonna wrap up. And it's just nice to pick something up that I just feel like I'm breezing through, especially in contrast to reading The Fool's Quest, which I'm also reading right now, which is so fantastic, but is actually destroying me on the inside. So, you know, maybe I needed something not light. This isn't light, but it's breezy, if you will. So anyway, I've read this much in less than 24 hours, which I'm pretty pleased with. I'm gonna read more today, but I have things I need to do. So I'm gonna start doing those things, and then hopefully I'll be able to read more, and I will check in a bit. But yeah, cheers. Good morning. What else would I be doing if not making homemade hot chocolate? We are on a 5-day streak. I can't let it end before Christmas. That's ridiculous. So I accidentally ordered 4 ginormous acorn squashes with a grocery pickup like a week and a half ago, and I've just been slowly making my way through them, and I officially only have 1 left. Tonight's acorn squash related dinner, based on things I already had in my fridge, is like a acorn squash pasta. I'm gonna make like a puree, onions, some garlic, some squash. I had some mushrooms, I had some sage I'm gonna use too, which works quite well if I'm being honest. It's a spicy Italian sausage, pasta. Should be honestly pretty tasty, even though it's really just like, looked at my fridge, I'm like, what can I make here? Here is my acorn squash sauce. I also browned some sage and some mushrooms and some sausage, mix that in, and I'm just waiting for the pasta to be done. And then I dump it in here, and then we enjoy. And dinner is served. Hello everyone, good morning. I'm here with my cup of coffee. And I've been doing some reading, and obviously I did some reading last night, and look at this progress. I've officially reached part 3 of this book, Two Twisted Crowns. I'm past the 300 page mark, 320 pages, so about 80 pages approximately left of this book before I complete it. Let's give an update on my thoughts and feelings. Unfortunately, I do think I like this book more than One Dark Window, but I also think my issues with this book are consistent, which is a frustrating experience because I do feel like there is so much that is good and interesting about this world and characters and writing, but it almost just feels like it needs more, like a little more oomph. And it's a very hard thing to describe because like I'm reading it and everything like on paper I'm liking, but at the same time, like the whole collective experience, it's like somehow I'm still wanting like a bit more, and that feels hard to articulate because it sounds unfair. I'm reading it and I'm like, yeah, I like the writing, I like the characters, I like the concept, but still something's just like slightly off for me. And I think it just has to do with the pacing of things and just having things be a bit more drawn out. But again, I do think I'm liking this more than book 1, and also I can see why the series is really popular. I definitely think if the series sounds interesting to you, it's definitely worth picking up, especially if you're looking for a fantasy series that has romance but also has like a complete well plotted, well thought out, well executed fantasy element to it. I do feel like as a romantasy novel, this has a very strong fantasy component. I think for me where it's lacking is I just want things to be a little more, like I feel like obviously there are obstacles both in the fantasy plotline and even as we watch characters get to know each other, but I feel like those are overcome pretty quickly. And so I don't know, maybe I just want to be agonized more. Like, is that a dramatic thing to say? I'm not sure. With that in mind though, let's talk about the positives. So I've read up to part 3, and I am liking this sort of dual narrative style we have going on, the quest plotline and then the politics at the castle plotline. I do think that the romance in this book I am liking more than the first one. I feel like it is a little more dramatic in a way that I can buy into. I like the characters, I find them compelling. I think the only thing I would prefer in terms of fleshing out this new romance in this book is to have the female perspective. I feel like this book is a lot of male point of view, which I'm gonna give Rachel Gillig credit for the amount of time I'm spending in a man's head in this book. They don't really annoy me. Like, I like them. Like, don't get me wrong. They're interesting characters and I like their points of views. I just think it'd be interesting to be able to read the other side of this romantic situation, and I think it would just add to that experience. And I like being in the castle. One, I feel like we get a little more insight on like the politics of this land and like what's wrong with the politics, and characters like desperately trying to like change it. Obviously with the quest storyline, we're also getting more insight about like the origin of this place, like why the mist formed, what happened all those years ago when the Providence cards, these magical cards, were created. But yeah, I definitely feel like the romance in the sequel is stronger. I like the castle storyline quite a bit. The quest storyline I think is important, but I almost feel like it's everything in the quest storyline is happening pretty fast. I think maybe that's just my criticism overall. Like, maybe there just needs to be more. Because I think the concept is strong, you know? Okay, like for example, like I just think about the romantic pacing of, has anyone read Fire by Kristen Cashore? I felt like Fire by Kristen Cashore is a perfect example of really great, interesting fantasy plotline, wonderfully placed, wonderfully paced romance where you're just like on the edge of your seat, sold, bought in, and wait to see how it's going to unravel. And that is only one book too, so I don't really know the difference here. Maybe it's just a matter of like personal preference. So I feel bad even like criticizing this book, but I probably gave One Dark Window 3 stars. And I think this book is probably kind of like 3.5 stars for me. It's a series I would recommend if it sounds interesting to you, but it's also one of those situations where I'm like, I just want more. I just want more because I feel like the potential's there, the writing skill is there, the concepts are there. So I think maybe that's why I feel like I'm sounding more critical of this series, and I feel like maybe I would if I was reading a 3.5 star romantasy book where I had lower expectations. So like, this is good. Like, I feel like she's doing a lot of things right in this, but I also feel like it's so close to being like 5 out of 5 stars if like a few things were changing. But anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. We got our 2 progressing storylines. They're both headed in, you know, some very interesting directions. The pacing is quick, but I am compelled by, you know, the romance and some of the character development in this, and getting the backstory I feel like really helps flesh out the progression of this book. But I've been rambling enough, so there's that. We'll finish this today. Getting dressed. I thought I would document it. This took a lot of mental energy and fortitude to make happen, but we got there in the end. I'm also gonna sit down and do a bit more reading. It is almost lunchtime, so, you know, I will be heating up some leftovers today as well. And just counting down the minutes until I can make another hot chocolate mocha. I can't wait. It's gonna be delicious. Hot chocolate has become my primary personality trait, and I'm completely okay with it. So, cheers to that. Let's keep on trucking along. Let's finish this book. We're doing it. In the meantime, 'tis the season. 'Tis the season. I'm gonna open up this Reese's Tree and enjoy. Seasonal candy. Oh, that's the back. Seasonal candy just hits different, you know? Good stuff. Good stuff. Good soup. Alrighty, folks, it's time to continue. Let's keep reading. There we go. We are very much in the home stretch. I actually had 120 pages left. I had miscounted, but now I have 50 pages left. So I just did another 70 pages, and the reveals are interesting in both the timelines, I would say, and there's been reveals in both that have really heated things up. A level of intensity has definitely been added to the book, which I appreciate. Plus I love like when things are tied together. So I'm definitely curious to see how this whole thing is going to culminate. A lot of it has to do with like legacy and magic and family and betrayal through time and like fixing old wrongs and like not being able to ignore the past. These types of things are definitely like a big part of this book. I will say things have been introduced but then also resolved very quickly, or like they finally reached the big destination and then it was like wrapped up, you know what I mean? And then we're moving on to our another big final plot line, and like again, another example of good concept. I'm just not so sure about the execution on everything, but I do enjoy the characters, and I also appreciate the dynamic relationship between the monster and Elspeth. I like that it's not so straightforward and that things can both be good and bad, and so I appreciate sort of that dynamic and honestly sometimes the humor that comes from this sort of situation, and I think that added like a nice wrinkle to the book itself. We'll see how the entire story will wrap up. I only have 50 pages left. I have a feeling I know what's about to happen, and I think that's like, you know, kind of part of the problem. But sometimes it's about the journey. And I wasn't necessarily expecting to have my mind blown with how things were coming together. But there were some twists in this that I was like, oh, that makes sense. I should have saw those sort of plot connections come together, but I didn't. So I wouldn't say like I guessed everything in this book. But anywho, we keep reading. Obviously, I have made more hot chocolate. It's a rule, it's a requirement of functioning in this life. Marshmallows. Whipped cream. Cheers, let's go finish my book. Hi guys, fantastic news. I finished Two Twisted Crowns. Reagan just popping in to just apologize for the whipped cream that's on my nose for the entirety of this clip. Anyway, and honestly, it was okay. I really wanted this vlog to be a story of redemption. I really wanted this vlog to be like, I thought the first one was good, but the second one was amazing. The hype is real. We should all believe the hype. And this is still just a story of nothing was really wrong with this book. Everything about this book I liked, but also nothing about this book I loved. It wrapped up fine. Collectively, the experience of this was like objectively good, but for some reason, nothing really resonated in my heart to say like, man, this book is great. I need to sing about it from the rooftops. I need to recommend it to everyone I know. But I also recognize that my experience with this might not be a universal one, and like clearly it's popular for a reason. It's got some great tropes. The author has some like good writing chops, and I definitely would read other books that she could put out in the future, because you never know. This could be like a Rebecca Ross situation where I read her debut series and thought it was just okay, and then obviously I've read her later works and have really enjoyed them. So I feel like there's a lot of promise here, but I still can't say like, man, I'm obsessed with this, 4 or 5-star read, like everybody's got to go check it out. Like, I just thought it was okay, and the ending was good. The whole book, the whole duology was good. But yeah, there we are. But anyway, despite this, I hope you guys enjoyed this reading vlog. I know, I sure did. Hot chocolated my way through this reading vlog. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.